Over the past 100 years, Ocean Mist Farms has become a world-class producer of 26 different fresh vegetables. But despite their size, their reputation, and their market share, economic pressures are pushing them to rethink their business strategy.
In the last 99 years, being a commodity company was a good model for us. It's what we did best. But as we're seeing more volatile markets, we're recognizing now that just growing these commodities and being a great quality producer of them, that differentiation is not enough to really help us continue to stay profitable.
Ocean Mist Director of Marketing Mark Munger joins us to talk about the company's path towards innovation and why they believe that's the way forward.
Rather than just come to market with an item and then, expect it to do really well, we have a whole innovation pipeline in place now. We actually have products that we're going to launch in October that are in the works right now. And so, we are hoping that every 6 months we're bringing a new and innovative roastable with a new vegetable item into the marketplace.
A farming company's transformation from leading commodity producer to innovative consumer brand on today's Future of Agriculture podcast. Hello, fellow Ag Nerd. Thanks so much for joining me for another episode of the Future of Agriculture. My name is Tim Hamrich, and every week you and I get to hear from the founders, farmers, innovators, and investors, the people shaping the future of the ag industry. We have today a really interesting case study of innovation in the vegetable industry. But first, I want to take just a moment to recognize our quarterly presenting sponsor, which this quarter is Case IH. As most of you know, I'm fascinated by the way technology and innovation are shaping the future of agriculture, hence why I do this podcast. It's also why I'm really excited to partner this quarter with Case IH. Case IH designs, engineers, and produces cutting-edge farm equipment based on a comprehensive understanding of farmers' needs, wants, and challenges, integrating these insights into their development and manufacturing. For example, take their model year 25 Magnum tractor. This new Magnum is purposefully designed to answer farmers' needs in every design and engineering choice. Improved horsepower for pulling heavier loads faster, bundled, integrated, and ready-to-go precision tech for greater accuracy in the field, and a transmission farmers can tweak for improved control and performance in different tasks. That kind of design thinking is exactly where the future of ag is headed, and that's why you'll be hearing me talk to folks at Case IH at different points throughout this quarter about what they do and how they're working to push ag forward. Thanks again to Case IH for their leadership in ag innovation, and of course for supporting this quarter of the Future of Agriculture podcast. All right, now back to today's featured conversation with Mark Munger of Ocean Mist Farms in Castroville, California, which is in the Salinas Valley. Mark shares a story that I think is really relevant to a lot of agriculture production today, not just in California, not just in the United States, but all over the world. Although Ocean Mist has grown a great business to produce consistent, high-quality, affordable, safe, nutritious vegetable commodities, they still face challenges. Rising costs, regulations, competition, and consumers whose expectations for convenience have gone up dramatically. These headwinds are being faced by everyone in agriculture right now, and they've compelled Ocean Mist Farms to move in the direction of innovation. And Mark is going to share with us today exactly what that looks like and what that means for them. One big disclaimer here, you're going to hear some background noise in this episode. While recording, I just figured Mark must work in a pretty loud office environment, but then he ended up telling me after we were done that the office was actually being evacuated during our interview, and he didn't say anything because he wanted to just finish the recording. So if Mark could stick it out for the whole interview in that scenario with his whole office evacuating, I hope you can endure a little bit of background noise in our episode here today. Just for some background, Mark Munger is the Director of Marketing at Ocean Mist Farms, where he's been for the last 2.5 years. Mark is definitely not new to the industry. He's worked in fresh produce for almost 40 years now, including positions at the Produce Marketing Association, which is now the IFPA, International Fresh Produce Association, Driscoll's, Four Earth Farms, and others. I'm going to drop you into the conversation here where Mark is giving more background on Ocean Mist Farms.
So we are a family-owned farming company. Four families have equal ownership of Ocean Mist. Last June, the company had a 100-year milestone and hit its 100-year anniversary. We're now owned and operated by fourth-generation family members, and a little bit of change out in some of the ownership. So two of the original families still have ownership in the company. And the company was founded here 100 years ago in Castroville, California, growing artichokes, Brussels sprouts, and broccoli. And over the last 100 years, we've expanded now to about 26 different fresh vegetable items. And we now farm about 24,000 crop acres, mostly in California. We're also in Yuma, Arizona, and we do a little bit of farming down in Mexico. Kind of helps us with some of the tips and tails and with some of the warm weather veg items like asparagus and green onions.
Okay. And you said those first three crops were artichokes and broccoli, and what was the third one?
And Brussels sprouts.
Oh, and Brussels sprouts. Yep.
Yeah. They were an Italian immigrant family, and they came over and basically started growing here the crops that they knew best there. And we're best known now for artichokes. Ocean Mist Farms represents about 80% market share of the fresh artichoke category in North America. So we are by far the largest year-round grower of artichokes. But it's not our largest item that we grow, but I think it's what we're best known for. We're kind of very closely connected to that artichoke moniker. And, here we are in Castroville, California, which is also known as the artichoke capital of the world.
Yeah. And you mentioned around 25,000 acres of crop acres. And some people outside of California may not realize why in California you got to specify crop acres for something like this. And that's because you can get more than one. Is that right?
That's exactly right. It's a great question. We don't actually farm 24,000 unique acres, but land in California is really expensive, and you've got to make the best use of the land as you can. So we do our best to try and turn and get as many crops on an individual acre over the crop season as we can. And when we're doing real short season items like lettuces, we can get actually 3 crops during this Castroville season up here. Brussels sprouts, artichokes are a little bit longer items, and we don't get quite as good a turn. But if we can get 3 crops on an acre, we include that in our acreage, and that's what we refer to as crop acres.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a lot of people will refer to these as high value crops, right? They'll talk about row crops or tree crops. But in the case of all the specialty crops, I guess that would include trees. They might say high value crops, which might lead one to assume that they're always very profitable. Can you talk about the current, economics facing the types of crops that you all grow and market?
Yeah, I wish that they were high value. They don't always feel that way. But we grow primarily commodity items. I think we're going to talk a little bit today about innovation and some of the motivation into some of the changes that we're making. But, we grow iceberg lettuce, romaine, romaine hearts, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. And, because they're commodities, we are really at the whim of the commodity markets. And while our company, I think, has a really strong reputation in the retail and food service industry as being quality leaders, so we do get a premium if, the market for iceberg lettuce, as we're speaking today, is depressed and goes down, we might still be at the top of the dollar for what we receive for that box, but we go down and up with the commodity markets. And so it's volatile. And, one of the challenges being a California grower is all of the regulations and the costs that we are dealing with as farmers. And, while we try and work gracefully with our customers to pass along some of those inflationary costs, we can't really pass them all on. And over the last 20 years, we've seen a lot of increases: cost of fuel, cost of labor, cost of land, cost of permitting, and among various other things. And so, we definitely have been challenged to try and hold on to some of the margins that we need to continue to reinvest in the business. And fortunately, we are diversified from our crop base. And so while we have some crops that might be down in the market, we usually have others that are up. And we are still trying to expand and become more geographically diverse as well to mitigate and minimize weather incidents, and also try and find areas where we can grow more efficiently it's always a challenge. Agriculture is always facing a bit of an uphill battle to remain profitable.
Right. Yeah. And on top of those kind of cost pressures, regulatory pressures, I understand there's also, quite a bit of competitive pressure as well.
We're here in Salinas Valley. We have a great position in the Salinas Valley. Most of our farms are literally right next to the Pacific Ocean. So we're at the mouth of the Salinas Valley. But, you drive around and it is a beautiful patchwork quilt of farms here in the Salinas Valley. But there are a lot of other players here. Fortunately, there's no bag growers in the Salinas Valley. All the bag growers got weeded out about 50, 60 years ago. So we have great competition. We put high quality, very safe products into the marketplace across the board, which is a good thing. But, we tend to all be our worst enemies. There is levels at which the market can handle products. And when, as an industry, we produce more than the market has an appetite for, that's when we see markets go down. This year, we're in the winter right now. We've actually had a optimal growing winter in the desert growing regions. No frost, very little wind, very little rain exposure. And so everybody's farms are doing well. And, it's the funny thing about agriculture. It's counterintuitive. When we're all doing great from a farming perspective, the markets usually aren't. We usually get paid the least amount for the best quality products that we grow. It's usually when the markets are high is when we're challenged, and quality is usually not optimal, but we're putting what we can in the marketplace. So always feels a little bit opposite. And I was just in Coachella, which is our primary desert growing region, this week, and it's absolutely stunning. The crops are beautiful. So can't complain there, but we wish the markets were a little better.
Right. Right. And, that's kind of what caught my attention about your story was, you all from the outside looking in seem to have every advantage. You've been doing this for 100 years. You farm in, some of the most pristine farming regions in the world. You have the diversity of crops. You've got really high market share when it comes to something like artichokes. But what you told me is like you still see the need to innovate from here. You see the path forward as innovation. So can you maybe talk about the story of what led to that discussion, that realization, that strategy of innovating is the way forward?
I can. I think our ownership, our senior management are wise, because we have a legacy of farming. I think that they've been very cognizant of how the industry works. And we do recognize that, especially in fresh produce, that the industry never stands still. It's always in a constant state of evolution. It's interesting. If you go to the Pajaro Valley, which is the next valley over from here in Watsonville, right now it is really the strawberry capital of the world, but it's in a state of evolution. But if you went back 100 years ago, that valley was planted wall to wall with sugar beets and then with apples, and then strawberries came in. And now strawberries are kind of working their way out, and it's really becoming a raspberry and a blackberry growing area. And so I think our owners were realizing climates change, environments change, markets change, varieties change. And so we always have to be cognizant of those changes. But for us, I think we've recognized that 100 years ago and the last 99 years, being a commodity company was a good model for us. It's what we did best. We put really great commodity fresh vegetables into the marketplace. But as we're seeing more volatile markets, greater stretches of depressed markets from overproduction, we're recognizing now that just growing these commodities and being a great quality producer of them is not enough. That differentiation is not enough to really help us continue to stay profitable. And so the company has been implementing what we call innovation into our culture starting about 10 years ago. And innovation takes a long time. If you're a company that's been on a certain charted course for 100 years, you just can't switch into, innovation. And so first we had to really understand what it meant and where we wanted to implement innovation. And so it's being implemented in this company in a lot of ways. It really started first in our farming. Our harvesting crews began to redesign our harvesting equipment so that we were doing more packing, more quality packing, finished packing, one-touch packing. at the field in the harvesting equipment so that when it came into our cooler, it was ready to be cooled and shipped. We've been looking at the use of robotics for weeding, for soil testing. And so there's been a lot of that innovation. But most recently, and what you and I were talking about the other day, is really product innovation and how instead of delivering a head of lettuce or just a bunch of broccoli to the marketplace, can we come up with more innovative products that add more value to consumers by minimizing time, giving cooking solutions, products that consumers are willing to pay a little bit more for that convenience, and then drive hopefully slightly better margins back to the farm.
Right. Yeah, and I want to talk a lot more about that because what you came up with is really cool. I mean, I'm excited to share it. But before we do, you mentioned, 10 years ago, wanted to set this direction. Innovation takes time, especially in a established company. Can you talk about what some of those barriers are to becoming an innovative company and sort of how the company was able to work through them?
Well, like all things, innovation takes new resources. Those can be human resources and also capital investments. And so those are probably the biggest barriers that we really found. When we began from a product perspective to get innovative, we started doing value-added produce packing. So washed, trimmed, whole Brussels sprouts, halved Brussels sprouts, shaved Brussels sprouts in form and fill bags like you see in the supermarket, broccoli and cauliflower florets. Our company was very late entry into that value-added segment. And when that value-added segment came out, that really was the big innovation for the industry. Consumers were able to go buy broccoli florets that were already cut and ready to cook and steam rather than a whole head of broccoli. When we got into it, obviously, a lot of other players were already there, but we had to first invest in equipment, invest in space in our facility, invest in a whole new food safety tactics and parameters. So we had to beef up our food safety expertise. We had to bring people in that knew how to run production rooms. We had to change the way we harvested. Instead of packing into corrugate boxes ready for the marketplace, it was more reusable, rewashable totes. And so those are a lot of the barriers. It's money and people are the real challenges to innovation. And then also ensuring that you know what the marketplace wants, because you don't want to build a buggy and then put it in the marketplace and find out that people aren't driving buggies to work anymore. They're actually driving automobiles. And so there also has to be some market research, consumer research, understanding what you're doing, what the competitive environment is, so that you are entering the market at the right place with the right products. And so that was the first big innovation that the company did, was we got into this whole line of value-added products. And it went from 0% to somewhere around 12% of our total volume sales over the last 5 to 7 years. So it's been a significant growth in that category. But we've come to a place where that kind of value-added produce has now been commoditized. So everybody's doing broccoli florets, and most of the cases, the retailers don't want broccoli florets in our brand. They want them in the supermarket in their own brand. And so all of the major chains, be it Kroger, Albertson, Safeway, Target, Walmart, have their own store brands now. And so we pack into those brands. And so we're not even able to differentiate our value-added produce anymore. When you go into a Safeway store, you're going to see their home brand, and there may be 3 suppliers providing it, and you're not going to know which one it is. And so that's been commoditized. And so we were saying, we really need to leapfrog that innovation and really understand what consumers want and come up with some products that add even more value than just a bag of value-added produce. And that really has been our next big innovation that we've been working on for the last 2 years.
Well, let's talk about roastables. You've set us up nicely for it here. So what exactly is that innovation, and how has it kind of leapfrogged where the industry was?
Well, I'm glad you asked. It's been a really fun project. What we hear in our consumer research, and I don't think there's any surprises, is that consumers continue to say that they're more time stressed. They want meal solutions. Consumers say that they actually want to spend less than 20 minutes from start to finish preparing their dinners these days. And if you go back just 20 years, consumers were willing to spend 45 minutes in the kitchen preparing dinner. And so that time frame has been crunched. And so we took that information and looked at our products and said, look, we're still not really providing a meal solution. When they get our broccoli florets, when they get our halved Brussels sprouts home, they still have to figure out what to do with them. And so, I think when we had the pandemic, a lot of people really leaned into the whole meal solutions, Blue Apron, HelloFresh, a lot of these services that were delivering food directly to our door, so we didn't have to go into the stores. They were all packaged, but you got this entire meal solution. And we started to get exposed, especially those of us that aren't cooks, to new flavors, new spices. They really gave you all the solutions. And we leveraged that with the information that consumers are looking to spend less time. And we came up with this concept of roastables. And we didn't want to have to teach consumers how to do anything new, but we wanted to ensure that we utilized our products in a very, very highly solution-oriented way. And so what these roastables are basically ready to roast kits. And we launched them last October, first with Brussels sprouts. We came up with 3 flavors, a sweet sesame, a lemon Caesar, and a sun-dried tomato. And they're formatted very similar to a salad kit, where you get a bag of halved Brussels sprouts, and in that is a little master pack with a spice kit and a crunchy topping. And consumers just put the Brussels sprouts in a bowl, add a couple of tablespoons of olive oil, mix in the spice, put them on a roasting pan, and in 15 minutes, they're ready. And we worked very closely and are continuing to work very closely with a culinary team up in San Francisco to help us with the flavors, to ensure that we were really creating these very almost indulgent eating experiences. In fact, we're trying to mimic what consumers are getting when they're eating, for instance, Brussels sprouts in a restaurant. But because we're fresh growers, our priority is really still delivering healthy products to consumers and making our fresh products, the fresh produce, the hero. And so that has kind of been incorporated into this whole roastables concept. And so all the roastables have a lot of flavor, but they're all under 50 calories per serving. They don't overpower, for instance, the Brussels sprouts. You still get a good Brussels sprout experience, but you're getting a really great flavor as well. And then when you're finished roasting these, you put them in a plate, you add a crunchy topping to them, and it's really ready to serve. And so it's 15 minutes of prep and total of 20 minutes between prep and cooking time, which stays right in those parameters we heard from consumers. It's been really well received in the marketplace. We're in a number of retailers now. We're continuing to expand distribution of the roastables. And I'm excited to say on March 10th, we're going to launch 4 new SKUs of roastables. 2 are going to be in broccoli florets, and 2 are going to be cauliflower florets.
Yeah, and I understand. I mean, the first roastables haven't even been out that long, right?
That's right. They launched the first week of October. And so we basically, rather than just come to market with an item and then, expect it to do really well, we have a whole innovation pipeline in place now. And part of that is we actually have products that we're going to launch in October that are in the works right now. And we're looking at the following March with different SKUs still in this roastable concept. And so, we are hoping that every 6 months we're bringing a new and innovative roastable with a new vegetable item into the marketplace. And, it's a little bit less produce than we're putting in our bulk packs. It's a higher price. And so it's a better margin, but we also feel that that's the reward of bringing something innovative to consumers. And what we're excited is that in this vegetable category, or this cooking vegetable category, there really hasn't been a lot of innovation aside from, the cut and ready to prep items. And so retailers seem very, very excited that we are bringing something so that somebody is maybe less afraid to buy a bag of broccoli florets or a bag of cauliflower florets, because we're actually giving them a full solution on how to plate it so that it tastes really good, it's easy, it looks good. The cook can actually be the hero. And what's fun is that we're doing it with items that are right in our core. And we talked about innovation requires capital investment, and as part of that capital investment, in this case, we already had the equipment in place. All we really needed to do is to modify the equipment so we could drop that master pack in. And so it's innovation that really required a very limited amount of innovation.
And that's because you were already doing like the florets, you were already doing value added.
That's correct. And that was part of what we wanted to do. Now, one of the things that we're really excited, because we really own the artichoke category, is to also begin to bring innovation into artichokes as well. If you think about the 20 minutes of cook time for consumers, and then you think about what it takes to cook an artichoke, it's 40 minutes of steaming no matter what you do. And so we have an item that is really on a, diverging course with what consumers say they want. And so, one of the things we're starting to put a lot of energy in, and no announcements for this podcast, but is how do we make artichokes easier to cook? More of a value added, and what formats can we do that? And so a lot of work right now with the same culinary team is going into that. And it may not be necessarily in a roastable format, or it may, but it could be, what would it be if we had a fresh, partially cooked item that we could offer to consumers in the supermarket, and they could take home and literally cook an artichoke and plate it for their family in under 15 minutes. And so those are the kind of questions that we're asking and saying, look, we just can't deliver a whole artichoke into a supermarket and expect consumers to grab onto it and spend the time to cook it like they did 20, 25 years ago. And so it's exciting. It's a very exciting time right now.
Yeah. And I mean, the point you make about how consumers have changed probably answers this question, but maybe there's other catalysts. My question is kind of the why now question. Why is this innovation happening now? It's exciting. It makes so much sense to me. But you've got things like parboiled rice that have been around a long time, and other things to try to make raw ingredients more convenient to cook. Why do you think this innovation's hitting the market now?
I think it's a whole combination of things, changing demographics and really being aware of what consumers are saying they need. I think consumers, because the COVID crisis, it forced us into more meal-ready options. I think consumers are ready for this. They are starting to really recognize the value of these meal solutions and see great value in it. And we didn't have to teach them how to do this. And so I think that's a big catalyst to the change. I also think, technology gets better, innovation gets better, our ability to try and find natural flavors out there in the marketplace has been improving. And so it just feels like it's a good aligning of the stars. And it's also a time when, our company is very self-reflective about how we remain profitable. And, we're not in any kind of financial crisis, but we're really seeing this instability and, a change in how consumers are purchasing and consuming products. And, it doesn't mean that we won't keep growing Brussels sprouts or broccoli or cauliflower. How we deliver it into the marketplace may just continue to shift as we're able to continue to innovate on these products. So that's really where I see the shift. And I think we're just trying to stay ahead of it and stay smart and fleet of feet. And, what we looked like when we hit our 100-year anniversary last June, and what we're going to look like when this company hits its 125th anniversary, in June of, I think that's 2049. It's going to be a really interesting thing to see, because I think this company is really committed to this innovation, and it will be baby steps, and it's painful. These roastables were not easy, but you could either let those barriers dissuade you, or you use those as opportunities to learn and to grow. And in reality, they become barriers to your competitors. And so you create market opportunities for yourself.
Right. Absolutely. So as you're talking about, innovation, not to say that that's not enough, but what does come next, either in product or otherwise, in production or in the company? How are you thinking about innovation next?
Well, we are looking at it in a number of ways. To kind of tip the hat on artichokes, and that's going to be a really fun one, because I think as we can make artichokes more accessible and less scary for consumers, make them easier to cook, I think we have a lot of opportunities both at the food service level and at the retail level. And so right now, there's a lot of work going into what does the market want, what does the market need, what forms and formats do they need it in, how pre-cooked can it be. There's a lot of shelf-stable artichoke items in the marketplace, mostly like the marinated artichoke hearts and things. And those are all grown mostly in Spain and Peru. And their cost of production, their cost of labor is so cheap that we know we can't afford to compete against them with the shelf-stable items. And so I really doubt that we'll have a marinated artichoke heart, because we just simply couldn't produce it cheap enough to compete with them. But since we're the big North American producers of fresh artichokes, I think we have huge opportunities in that fresh category, things that still have shelf life. And I think consumers would prefer a fresh option to a marinated or a shelf-stable one that you don't know how long it's been in that jar. And so I think that's our sweet spot there. I know that our farming team and our harvesting team are really working hard with engineers, innovators, robotics people to continue to try and look for options that help us improve the quality of the products that we are picking, the speed with which we pick, minimize labor. How much labor can we take out of it? It's tricky. We're in a very labor intensive industry with crops that are very, very sensitive and have to be picked right. Our harvesting crews and our farming crews are really skilled technicians, and trying to replace that with technology is a big uphill battle. But those are the kind of decisions that we're making. We've been farming in California for 100 years. And for the last 2 years, we've been running farms in Florida and South Carolina. Learning how to grow the same vegetable crops that we grow here over there, which gives us a little bit more geographic diversity. It also puts some of our commodities closer to the markets instead of having to put romaine lettuce on a truck and ship it 5 days to the East Coast. We're growing it now a 1-day truck ride from all the major East Coast markets. And, there's a lot of pain in that learning experience, because, we know how to farm on the West Coast. And so learning how to be East Coast farmers. But, that's just another area where the company is really investing heavily, because they're saying, we're not going to decrease the acreage that we're farming out in California, but what if most of our growth comes from farms that are closer to the East Coast, and that we could then be much more competitive? We're not paying for a truck ride. We're not paying for, we're losing 5 days of shelf life. There's a lot of value to having products. So this company is really looking in a lot of areas. We're using, business intelligence, artificial intelligence in our business analytics now. I've used it a little bit in the marketing. I'm still really big into writing our own stuff, but I think that artificial intelligence has a great potential to look for trends, to analyze sales data, to be looking for missed opportunities, maybe even become aware of things like a declining sales for a customer. You're not going to see that until reports come out 2 or 3 weeks after the sale. But, some of this business analytics is looking at that stuff real time and pinging us and saying, hey, this customer sales are going down. You might need to identify and figure out why. So I think we're looking at innovation on a number of areas. Fortunately, we have a lot smarter people than me working on that. My focus has really been, in addition to marketing, in the food innovation and in the innovation in the products that we're bringing to market. And that's been a real fun activity, and we're really just getting started.
Some really cool stuff, Mark. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Anything before I let you go, though, today? Anything you want to add or emphasize, or anything we didn't get to that you want to share about Ocean Mist and the innovation that's coming out of your company there?
I'm sure that about 2:00 tomorrow morning, I'm going to wake up and think of about 3 things I wish I had talked to you about. But I feel like we've covered a lot. I think we're a really good company. I'm really proud to wear the Ocean Mist brand and to be a part of protecting and building our brand. But we're not so unusual that we're not like a lot of the other ag companies, and hopefully the ones that are listening to your podcast. We're just trying to identify how we take a company that was fairly staid in the way we were operating and beginning to think out of the box. And I think it's something that any company can do. It really takes a village. I've enjoyed this project. I didn't mention, I'm really happy and proud to announce that our industry, the fresh produce industry, has an innovation award that's given every year at the New York Produce Show in December. And there were dozens of entries from really innovative companies that have been doing some pretty cool things. And we were in that competition, and we actually won it's called the Joe Nucci Innovation Award for innovative excellence that helps promote the consumption of fresh fruits and vegetables. And it was for our roastables. And so we were really excited, because I can guarantee you for the last 99 years, people didn't think of the word innovation when they thought of Ocean Mist. They thought about quality, integrity, consistency, relationship, which are all really important things. But innovation was probably not one of the adjectives they would have used to describe it. And so we felt like it was really great validation that, we're on the right track and that we got recognized for that. But, I guess my message is that, we're not superheroes, we're not supermen. I think we made a company commitment, and our leadership has built a really good team, and we've all been really supportive and working together to implement this food innovation. And that's what's made it so rewarding. It's, we've changed the way we're harvesting these products for these packs. Our production room has modified equipment to make it work. Our food safety team has helped us implement, the allergen control plans. Our sales team has really stepped up and learned how to sell this product. Everybody has got their fingers in it. It was a really beautiful Crystal Award that we got. And when I received it, I said it was so appropriate that it's Crystal, because there's a lot of people in our company that have their fingerprints on that award. And I think that's the key. It's not one person driving innovation, and it's not this top-down force. It really is a company-wide commitment and a team of people that really believe that we can change the way we do business and change the way we present our products to market.
All right, well, that is where we will wrap up today's episode. Huge thank you to Mark Munger for being on the show and sharing the Ocean Mist story with us. You can learn more about the company over at oceanmist.com. Of course, it will be in the show notes as always. I think this thought process of not resting on what has worked in the past and instead finding innovative ways to solve current problems for customers is something all of us in ag should reflect on. This is certainly a story that's going to stick with me, and I'll probably use it as an example time and time again. I hope you are also able to find ways to apply this to your own situation as well. Well, speaking of innovation, thanks once again to Case IH for being our quarterly presenting sponsor this quarter. Learn more about them, of course, at caseih.com, also in the show notes. Lastly, but never least, thank you for your time and your attention. I do not take it lightly. I'll be back next week with another story of ag innovation.